Welcome to the first lecture in the course on ecology and communities. This first one is looking at the science of ecology. My name is Wendy Nofke, and I will be presenting this lecture for you today. Ecology is the study of how living things interact with the environment and with each other. There are a lot of environmental influences over the ecology. Some of them are living and some of them are not living. The abiotic factors are the non-living factors, such as sunlight, soil, temperature, and water. The biotic factors are the living aspects that influence the ecology. These are things like other species and other members of the same species. The ecosystem is all of the biotic and non-biotic factors in the area and their interactions. An ecosystem is going to need constant energy input. Most of the time it's going to use light and a few chemicals. The light will enter in and be converted into chemical energy by the plants. Matter in the ecosystem is constantly recycled. This includes the water and the minerals as well as all of the other matter. The niche is the role of a species in an ecosystem. It's what it uses for food, how it obtains it, and how it survives. And then the habitat is the physical environment where the species lives. With the competitive exclusion principle, it states that two species cannot occupy the same niche in the same place for very long. One of the reasons for that is they would compete for the resources, and generally when that happens, one is likely to outcompete the other, and the other will either have to find some other adaptation, find a different location, or will eventually die out. When we look at the flow of energy, it starts with the producers. The producers are also known as autotrophs because they produce their own food. One type of producer is the photoautotroph that are going to use energy from sunlight to make food through photosynthesis. This includes plants, algae, and certain bacteria. The chemoautotrophs are going to use chemical compounds to make food by chemosynthesis. This includes some bacteria and the archaea. The consumers are going to depend on others for food. And there are several different groups of consumers. The herbivores are consumers that are going to consume the other producers, such as the plants or algae. The carnivores are going to consume animals, and the omnivores will consume both plants and animals. And then we have the decomposers. These are going to break down the remains and wastes, and then they will release simple organic molecules back into the environment. One type is the scavenger. They're going to consume the soft tissue of dead animals. The detrivores are going to consume detritus, which is things like dead leaves, animal feces, and other organic debris. And then the saprotrophs are going to feed on the remaining matter after the other composers have done their work. So when we look at the interactions of the organisms in an ecosystem, we can form food chains and food webs. The food chain is just a single pathway through which the energy and matter flow. So down here on the bottom left is an example where you start with the plants, the worm eats the dead plants, the turtle eats the worm, and then the eagle eats the turtle. The food web has multiple pathways through which energy and matter flow through an ecosystem. The food web is probably a little bit more accurate picture because a lot of organisms do not eat just one other species in there. It shows that there are other interactions that will influence the pattern. So we have the different trophic levels or feeding positions in the food chain or the food web. So when we look at the first trophic level, your first level is the producer. They make their own food. The second level is the primary consumer. They are going to consume the producers. The third level is the secondary consumer. They're going to consume primary producers. The fourth or tertiary consumer is going to consume the secondary producers. When we look at these trophic levels and the amount of energy, the energy gets passed up the food chain or food web from the lower levels. But when you move up to the next energy level, only about 10% of the energy is available to the next level. So when this occurs, there's rarely enough energy left for a fifth trophic level. When we look at the trophic levels in the biomass is the total mass of organisms at a trophic level. With less energy at the higher levels, it means fewer organisms, but the size of the organisms is greater. So even though you have smaller numbers in there, you're still going to have less biomass.